This channel is supported by Truefire. Truefire is an online library
enough, you can get the Truefire All Access Pass for as cheap as they ever do it, the $99 thing. So just jump and do that if you're looking for the best price that you can get Truefire All Access for.
There aren't too many things that I've found to be universally like something that you pretty much have to do with every single modeler. I'm running on about an hour and a half sleep, so apologies. But if there's one thing, it's this, and it's using a high cut in the cab block if it's possible. Seems to be pretty much universal. This is even like with the fractal stuff, so I'm using the fractal FM9 for this video. But Helix, Iridium, I definitely wanted this. It's just one of these things where as you start to increase the gain, you get some of this fizzy stuff, which to me is like the first thing that kind of, to my ears, sounds like digital, even though I know, like, you know, real amps are capable of fizzy tones and bright tones and, you know, harsh tones as well. It's just one of these things which, to me, is one of the first things that I try to dial out of a modeler. So in this video, I wanted to explore that a little bit, show you some of this in action. But also, I think some people have encouraged people not to use the high cuts, or saying like this is the wrong tool for the job. But for me, this is something that absolutely has been universally useful. Even as far back as like the Pod XT, I remember there was on certain forums, I think there was the Line 6 forum, where there was someone that was selling a device that you would put, I think, between the output of your Pod XT and front of house, with it in mind that this thing would help your unit sound more natural. And effectively, I think it turned out that what that thing was doing was like a high cut or a low pass filter. This is not a complex technique. It's not necessarily something that needs a very long explanation, but I thought it might be useful for some of you guys that might not have tried using these things live. Certainly for me, it's been absolutely the key to having a tone with a digital modeler that you can live with. It is especially the case for me, you know, because for my tones, I tend to be using single coils, and to get that singing, sustaining lead thing happening, which I so enjoy playing, you need a certain amount of gain, quite a lot of gain, and along with the ride with gain, generally what tends to happen is you get more of this fizz. So at home, you know, I've been comfortable using a high cut for ages. You do see people occasionally saying not to use them, and maybe it's the wrong tool. I think, you know, shelving might be a different idea, or maybe you might want to consider like pulling out some 4K. Maybe that's the offending frequency. But what I find works quite nicely for me, because you don't have to be too surgical with it, is just by ear, using the high cut within a cab block. Now most devices at this point have this. I think NUX, it only goes down as far as 5K, which is not far enough, I think, to really get some very pronounced differences in sound. So personally, I tend to set mine at around 4K if I know that it's going to be going into some speakers, like front of house, you know, PA speakers. I think it's a really good idea, by the way, to get in front of your PA speakers and really listen to what your tone is sounding like, and kind of take it in from a different perspective, because oftentimes we're behind the PA speakers and you don't really have too much idea about what it might be sounding like out front of house. Get a wireless system and try this. I think it can be really beneficial. I decided that I would try showing you without the high cut, so this is no high cut on this tone at all, and then it goes pretty extreme down to sort of like 4K. In the fractal world, you can set your high cut curve so it can be -6 dB per octave, -12 or -18, I think. The thing to bear in mind is that these are actually not like straightforward cuts. It's not like a brick wall thing. What these are is actually slopes that are kind of taking the top end. Cut is not a great descriptor for what it does. It's, you know, like a low pass filter. It's sort of gradually, especially in the Helix cab block, so that's -6 dB per octave. In the EQ blocks in the Helix, it goes down, and at the global, I think it's -12 dB per octave. So I actually prefer to use a slightly less steep slope, so -6 dB in the cab is where I head in Helix, and in Fractal I will set it at -6 dB too. Now, this is my suggestion, get out in front of house and try this for yourself and see where your sweet spot is, because you might be using more or less gain than me. You might have, you know, a better sort of tolerance for higher end frequencies, or you might find things that actually where you want it even smoother potentially than where I like it. So I would encourage you to try this. But as I say, you might have seen that video, it doesn't sound like crazy. It's not like you've just put a massive blanket on the speaker. When you actually hear outside like the front of the PA speaker, I think this helps to give you a bit more of a natural sort of tone, and something that is going to sound more full, whereas I tend to find that the danger with using modelers straight into a PA speaker front of house is that things can get a little bit fizzy and sound a bit smaller than we're used to when it's like an amp filling an entire room. So that is for me why getting in there, using a high cut. People might say try some other stuff, and I don't disagree that there's plenty of other tools that you could try using. You could do this on the desk, you could do this elsewhere. The trouble that I find is if you rely on a sound guy to do this entirely, another thing that they tend to do is also shave off the low end, which, you know, is going to make your sound even smaller relatively, and kind of that balance is going to sort of be tricky to get back, right? If they shave off like a high or low cut, you know, up to sort of 500 hertz, which sometimes people do to get out of the way of the bass, then you're going to find that quite a lot of the feel part of your tone is going to kind of get chucked out of the window with that. So that's kind of the thing to watch out for. So that's why for me, I tend to just kind of roll that high end off. And if you're still finding things fizzy, don't be afraid to go, you know, below 4,000 kilohertz. As I say, it's more gentle than you might expect. And particularly if you get out front of house and you find that your speakers, because I noticed this when I listen to, like, you know, just Spotify recordings or whatever's on the DJ set list. It's like, this is all very bright stuff when I hear it through the speaker in front of it, like blaring at my ears. And I like to just take the edge off of that, essentially, with a bit of a high cut. I think it's one of those things that sometimes you happen across a device which doesn't have this. This is one of the tools that I absolutely love modelers for, and I sort of miss amps not having this kind of functionality, because I think it really is useful for shaping a tone. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you use a high cut? You might not need it on everything, and you might not think you need it on clean tones, but if you're finding that your clean tones sound quite bright and thin, this could be a sign that maybe a high cut might not be a bad thing to use. I don't tend to do it in global settings just because it's easy to forget that those are there and can be kind of hidden from you. So I kind of like to do it in the cab block itself where I can. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Cheers for stopping by. Oh, and I put up a full transcription on Patreon of my Pink Pony Club solo from earlier in the summer. If you want to check that out, £5 a month for the Patreon. But yeah, I'll put up some backing tracks, and those will be available for the £2-3 tiers as well. But cheers.